gonna say today's the day we start cutting fabric, but I actually cut some fabric last night. I cut the velvet for the skirt because I did it upstairs in my kitchen on the floor. You know, I made like a whole thing out of it. I stood up into the corner of the counter and now I have a nasty bruise on my back. You know, but I wasn't gonna start this until I had the sleeve piece finished smocking. This isn't even it. And I'm like, I think I've got like 3 rows done on the first sleeve piece. So I was like, well, we can get started on other things. I need to find my black lining anyways. And like, I need to iron this 4th bodice piece still, and I need to figure out how to cut these out. I already cut that out, but I need to like swap the thread in my overlock to be black so we can get that all overlocked and get everything all overlocked, yada, yada, yada. Everything's gonna be nicely finished. I need to decide what I'm going to use for the piping because I have this red satin that's lovely and I have used it for many things, but this is the red velvet I got for the collar. They're like kind of very different. So I don't know, I might just try to use this. It's very thin. This was the really nice velvet and this was the cheaper velvet. The black velvet was $12 a yard, I think. And the red velvet was $40 a yard. This is silk velvet. It's so soft. I got like half a yard of it. So I will have plenty of excess because it's just the collar. Yeah, I'm gonna start cutting. I'm gonna start sewing things. I'm gonna be doing quite a bit of hand sewing on the skirt at least because I want to hand sew the seams like flat. I don't want to iron it because I don't have a needle board to iron it, especially because this velvet doesn't have a nap. It's inside out. It doesn't have a nap, which is like the direction that the fibers would go. On a fur, the like fur pieces all want to go like what they want to lay one direction. That's your nap. This velvet doesn't have a nap. If you lean on it, in fact, I think this is the piece that I kneeled on when I was cutting it out. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. There's like a few spots where I was kneeling on it and it's like fully flattened it one way. So if I ironed it, there would be like big iron presses down it. So I'm just gonna hand sew all of the seams open so that they all lay nicely and flat and everything and so on and so forth. And that's, you know, that's what we're doing. I wanna get the bodice cut out and so that I can just like get on the dress form and stop just having like these pieces laying around everywhere. Like they've just been laying on my desk chair for like a week now. That's the plan. I'm gonna start cutting, start sewing, and yeah, there may also be some clips that I just talk over because I am like super multitasking this week and maybe next week, but also maybe not next week. Depending on how much time I have, might have changed my mind on a few things that I'm going to do for this costume. But that is neither here nor there. Okay, everything I believe has been cut out. Oh, except for the linings. I need to get my overlock thread switched so that it's black. But from there, I can go in on all of the smocked pieces and overlock around the edges. I already went through, and if you can see it, I ran a top stitch like a little less than 1/4 of an inch around all of the edges, and I think you saw some footage of it, but I took like little thin pins and I pinned down all of the edges so that they're all laying nice and flat. And then I'll obviously go over all of it with my overlock. That's what I need to do now, and I'm gonna overlock everything except for the collar pieces. Yeah, and then once it's overlocked, I want to add the red trim on. I cut out 4 pieces at 1 3/8 inches because I have 1/2 inch seam allowances, and then so each like little piping that's sticking out will be more than 1/8. It'll be like 3/16. So more than 1/8, less than 1/4. If you get the vibes, those are the vibes that I'm putting out. Everything is going really well. I had one ugly piece of smocking, or I guess I had like my first panel of smocking had a bunch of mistakes on it, and so it's the one back piece. But I think I'm pretty sure I got the pattern positioned in a way where most of the ugly parts, like this is the only ugly part that stuck through. There was another big section like right here. I think this is like part of it, but I think it's fine. It'll be fine. It still looks great. Okay, I have the trim on the front and the back pieces, or I guess the piping. So now it is time to attach to the velvet side pieces. I'm gonna need an industrial lint roller for this costume, I think. The only problem I'm having with these, and I kind of fixed it on the back, it's just really hard to tell where the notches are. So like on the back pieces, I did those first. I went back in and I put some chalk on them. But I'm hoping on the front ones that I can just, it's so hard to tell. Okay, so I can't remember if I showed this or not, but I officially got all of the smocking pieces done. So the 2 sleeve pieces are already cut out, obviously. This one is closer to being finished. And then I also just sewed on the piping to like try to figure out how to do it. And I changed the way that I did it actually on the second one, but that one's pretty much done. And then I also cut out all of my lining pieces. So it's a full sleeve lining, and then all of the bodice will be lined. And then for the sleeve, because like this portion of the sleeve cap isn't attached, I've also cut out this facing piece. So like this will be behind this, so that if you like look down in there, it'll be, you know, finished. And then the regular rest of the sleeve cap that's like attached to the bodice will just be the lining. This will fully attach from like here to here. This will be attached to the bodice, like the rest of the bodice. And then to the line, it's gonna be like a whole experience to sew it all together. I've just done one of these. Now I know what I'm doing and I can walk you through it. This is what it looks like. It looks a little silly, but I know that it works out. I am probably gonna hand sew this down, I think, and maybe tack it in a few spots. Okay, here's how we're gonna do it. First and foremost is I have my piece of piping, but if I don't like, so it needs to like kind of fade in, like this side's not even perfect, but it needs to like, you know. So I actually sewed it, I think a little past where the notch is, so I'm just gonna mark the notch with the pin on both sides. And then I'm going to unpick like 3/4 of an inch probably. Oh, and I also melted this edge on the other one, huh? so that it would stop fraying. My velvet is a silk rayon velvet, so it's sealing the rayon that's like the base, and then the silk is the tufted area. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my whatever these things are called, I'm gonna line this up at the 1/2 inch mark because that's how wide my seam allowance is. And I'm just gonna put a pin in it. I could also mark this with tailor's chalk, but this will be easier for me to like see it. I'm gonna put a pin in it at the seam allowance. And then I want this to taper off so that it's like above the 1/2 inch mark by the time I get to the notch. So it's this is the 1/2 inch seam allowance here where it's sewn on, and then it would go like this. And I'm just gonna give it like a little stitching, like just a little like baste stitch just to hold it in place. I'm gonna do that on the other side too. I have sewn up the collar and the bodice lining. The back closure on this is going to be a little bit funky. On the back lining piece, I marked 2 inches in chalk that is obviously worn off, and I sewed it regularly to there. And then I just did a basting stitch the rest of the way so that I can just unpick it and it'll be like perfectly like that. And then when I like attach it to the zipper, it'll be perfect, basically. But, oh, the collar, I definitely need some sort of structuring element to it. Like I was looking at my reference photos to see if it was top stitched, and it's not top stitched, but it is so structured. So I think I want to put like, I honestly might have horsehair that I could put in it, and like, you know, or like a little bit of wire, honestly. But I also just think that I need some interfacing, or honestly, like muslin or canvas layer in here. Also, this velvet sheds like no other, and you can't iron it because you'll flatten your nap, and you can't have that. So I need to like, you know, that's just gonna bother me. Good morning, it is a new day. We left off on the collar last night. I'm honestly going to put that aside because I don't want to think about it right now. What I am going to do is I need to get the bodice as done as possible today and tomorrow. Some of my trim is coming tomorrow, as well as the zippers. The zippers are coming tomorrow, so that's fine. Today's Saturday, and I have today and tomorrow before I work for 12 days straight. That took me way too long to figure out. That's also putting me really close to the deadline for the submission. So I need to get this as done as possible, which it is actually like pretty much done. I have to do some funky things with this so that it'll attach to the skirt and look correct, and the piping, and I attached it incorrectly. So yeah, but it's gonna be easy, and yeah, the sleeves are pretty much ready to be attached. Like I can start sewing it all together. It's just gonna be a matter of like getting all of the pieces in the right sections and letting them lay right. I was thinking about it all night long last night while I was editing the crown video, which you've already seen at this point. Isn't she pretty? But one thing that I realized a little too late was that if I sew these together, they're gonna get stuck like this. So the piping will like be folded down like this, basically, and it'll be wrong. So I'm gonna unstitch this like 1.5 inches maybe, and then sew the bodice together, and then sew the piping together, and then sew it back on, and then it'll all attach to the skirt in one piece. This is what it looks like afterwards. Ta-da! I'm going to attempt a sleeve now, and we're going to see how this is gonna work. I believe I'm happy with this. Moment of truth. I think it looks good. This side seam and the back are just pinned, but this is what the sleeve looks like. It's very dark on the back. It is like very thin. It's like a very small section, but I think it's gonna look great. That looks good. This also isn't steamed yet, so, or ironed, so it's not like fully flat. Now I just have to repeat all of that nonsense on the other side. And then I think what I wanna do is take this and hand stitch down this seam on the inside, because it like wants to go that way because there's so much material, but it needs to go this way. So I'm just gonna go in and hand stitch like underneath all of the smocking and do like an invisible hand stitch, as well as up here. I hate that this is like bagging outwards. So I'm gonna hand stitch that, and then where the facing in here attaches. Actually, I don't know if I need to. Like I feel like it's hanging well. It's just at the point up here where it needs it. And I still have to figure out the collar. I don't know what I'm gonna do with you. I've just spent however long the original Fantastic Four movie is hand sewing. So you can probably barely see some of the stitches, but I basically just took some long pins. I pinned it all the right direction, but I pinned it like this, or this is how I learned to pin it. So then it's all held the proper way and everything is facing the way that it needs to, but then the pins aren't in the way of you stitching. And what I did was I either went where there was already a stitch in here, or just like deep under the little flappies. So like there's one there that's not supposed to be there, but then like the original stitch or whatever. There's probably one in there. And I just did that for all of the princess seams. And then the top of the sleeves, I don't know if you can see that, are basically just tacked, where I would do the same thing. I'd go in and I'd find like a stitch or deep underneath one of the flappies, and I would just thread the needle in between the layers of fabric, go up and then down and then back down and then over, and I got this nice edge. I did hand stitch the armhole seam open, but I think I'm actually gonna have to do it all towards the bodice. Otherwise, there's gonna be just a little section here where there's raw edges, and I don't want that. Now I need to figure out the collar, get the collar attached so that we can attach the lining. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna find a scrap of canvas to use, because hers is like so, you know. So I just ran it through the overlock, which is like a little under the stitch that I already put on it. And then on this side, I did like an invisible tack of this. So this will be like my good side. This is gonna be much, much better. I'm just gonna run an overlock along the bottom, then we'll attach it to the bodice. So before I actually attach my lining, I'm gonna do something that's just gonna, I have a feeling it's gonna make my life easier in the long run. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna run a baste stitch at a 1/2 inch, basically to mark where my seam needs to go along both of the armholes and along like the top of the sleeve. Just in case, I have a feeling one of them is gonna have to get like folded over and hand sewn on. So that's just gonna make my life easier. I actually I think I'm gonna do the same thing around the waist as well, because I know that's how I'm gonna wanna attach that. That's just gonna make my life easier to do it now and to have that all marked on. There's no guessing later. This looks ridiculous. First thing that we're doing to attach the lining is sewing it on at the neck hole. And then we're gonna figure out this sleeve situation, because honestly, I don't. I have the seam done, so I'm gonna clip the center front point. Then I'm going to take this and understitch the seam allowance to the lining at 1/8 of an inch, so that when it's all flipped, it should stay more towards the lining than anything. But there's also going to be a trim around the neckline, so that will help a lot with getting it to all lay how it's supposed to. Okay, here I am welcoming you to something that was actually just the worst. So I got this sleeve lining in. This seam is all closed up on both ends. I got it fully sealed, I'm pretty sure, all the way around. Oh, there's like a little hole there. Ta-da! Okay, so now I have to repeat that, and I'm not gonna lie, it took a lot out of me, so I took a break, so I have to remember what I did. It wasn't a long break, but you know, okay, so I think I did this. I did it from the inside, and then I tucked that little guy in, and then I figured out which side is the front. Which side are you? This is the front. Okay, front, right. Oh, and then I gotta put pins in here, match notches, and I'm just gonna be sewing everything right sides together as well as I can. Because let me tell you, that's all that you can give this portion of this. And I don't know if I've done this the hard way, or the normal way, or a way. Okay. And this goes over here. Like this. Okay, and then one thing that actually helped me a lot was adding another pin like a little bit further than I need to sew, just to keep everything kind of like straight. Like, I'm not gonna sew that far, but oh yeah, see? Like, this side's already gotten all mucked up and pulled up, and I got lots of tucking like that. So I'm just gonna pin this and then sew it where it is open. And then we'll check back in, because it's just gonna be an endeavor. First section done. Just gonna double check, make sure that I like it. Okay, and then this is the part that confused me earlier. So, oh, it's gonna be even worse now. Eventually, this is gonna sit like this. So I need to take these corners, and I sewed this completely wrong earlier and had to redo like almost half the sleeve. And I need to sew them like this. Okay, so I'm gonna find my notches first. Cool. Match up the armpit. Pin it along here, because I love my pins. Oh, this is the back, so I'm just gonna walk it up here basically. Right here, this is like the really hard spot to get in there. But I did find that if I do put, again, another pin like in here, that section that I just sewed, then it makes it easier to like keep it all together. So now I'm gonna sew this section and then repeat that on the other side, and then I'll show you how I closed up the other seam. Okay, the last step is to close up this top of the sleeve. So I like going in on the, I guess it doesn't really matter, but you can go in on either side and just kind of pull it out And then you should see exactly where it needs to be sewn on. It was easier for me to do it in halves. Find the point where it's attached to both sections and pin it so you know how far over you need to go. And then find your shoulder seam and match that up, and then just work slowly because you can get so many tucks in here. And now I'm just gonna sew this as well as I can. I hope this is all making sense. I'm explaining it as best as I can. So I believe I've got it all sewn up. So then you just flip and yuppers. Okay, last, well, not last, but almost last. To do the side seam, you just, yeah, okay, and then we will touch base again in a mo. I ironed that seam open, and now I'm gonna take this sleeve and push it in the other sleeve. And then, would you look at that? Beautifully lined. You know, or almost, ta-da! Now we're really starting to get somewhere. We're doing our best here. I am going to finish sewing the skirt together. I need to do the side seams on the skirt, and then we will attach it all together. Hi, you know what's just the best is that not only do I look bald right now, I broke my tripod earlier, and a new one is not gonna get here in time because I'm moments away from finishing this video. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna sew the bodice to the skirt and be done with it. We'll do the rest another time because that's how I have it on my schedule over here. Minus the little details and the zipper in the back and the zipper in the sleeves and attaching the lining. Other than all that stuff, it is done. I should just turn it around, but you know. So until next week, when you get to see even more of this.